Well, and I'll begin. Um,
Okay.
I'm also joining from Wasanich territory where Renee is. And in this moment, there is snow uh, coming down under wintry skies. And yet I can see the yellow gladness of the daffodil right outside my window. So it's one of these kind of moments of the both and. I, every day feel it's such a privilege to live and work and be in relationship on these lands. And so it's from that place that I begin my day is in gratitude. And I think that's always a great place to start. So we'll start with Royal Roads because we're really coming in from Royal Roads on Zoom. And we're situated on the traditional and unceded, the unsurrendered lands of the Lekwungen speaking peoples. So that's the Kasapsum and the Lekwungen ancestors and families. And we are completely grateful for this opportunity to be on these lands where and work on these lands and become intimate with these lands and take care of and tend these lands where together we're cultivating some deep roots of relationship and reciprocity and hopefully an increased connectedness between humans and more than humans. And in the particularly Royal Roads and in this program, the MA Environmental Education and Communication Program, we recognize that education is a living whole system. It's part of the earth system. We treat knowledge as a living presence, something that needs to be fed and needs to be received. And it has this kind of beautiful reciprocity all on its own. So I just ask you in this moment if you wouldn't mind putting your feet on the ground and taking a breath up through your feet. Just one big breath we could take together, one breath in unison, and just acknowledging what the place you are in, what the lands you are on mean for your life as we begin our session here today. So thanks everyone for coming. And today our seminar is called An Education of Personal and Planetary Significance, which may seem a little lofty, but when you start to hear us talking about what's going on in the program, you'll see that there's a grand interdependence between all of our thought and action and knowledge making. And so that's where we get our personal and planetary um, intimacy in this title. So I am Dr. Hilary Leighton. I'm an associate professor in the program, and I'm the program head. And joining me, helping me from the school is Vance Beaujoli, who's our school manager, and Katrin, who is our program coordinator, and Mariana, who's our program assistant, and some amazing MEEK students. That's our acronym is MEEK for this MA. Solara Goldwyn, who's an MA candidate, Andrew DeYoung, who's also an MA candidate, and Renee Senarini, also a candidate. So these three have some they're in the works. They're all in the thick of their research right now. So this is a good time to just hear what's going on for people and what this program means for them. I think that's always a great way to just get to know a program a little bit, get a little glimpse, a bird's eye view. So our agenda today, just we're going to do a brief overview of what Royal Roads is all about. We're going to have this grand conversation with our students, and there's also opportunity at that point if anyone has questions or they want to jump in. It's a kind of a casual, informal discussion that we want to have today. Then we'll go into program specific information and the application program process. So anytime you have questions, if you want to pop them in the chat, Vance will be watching the chat, or Katrin. And we can also send you links to things if you're looking for more information. So yeah, here's a little overview of, of course, we're in a national heritage site, sorry, and Hatley Castle, or it's really like a manor house. It's a beautiful 1908 building, is sort of our centerpiece, our jewel in the crown, as it were. It's a beautiful old building. And some of our work is done in that building, but there's also 600 forested acres and many other buildings, new and older. It's just a very vibrant campus that is we're really responding to the needs of the student body, and we've just made some beautiful renovations to buildings too on site. We have many gardens, one of which, of course, is the Japanese garden, just absolutely gorgeous. Right now, we're just about ready for all the rhododendrons to come out and in their riot of color. So just beautiful little lakes and ponds and gardens, formal and informal gardens to wander. We're right on the Esquimalt Lagoon, and that is an actual picture of what it looks like at sunset on a summer night. Very beautiful. So obviously access to water. And we've been doing online learning for over 25 years. So we were one of the first universities in North America to engage in this kind of learning, where we do our blended model of you meet, you get to bond with people, get to know people, and then go online to do the majority of your work, and then come back and meet again, and then go off and do your research. It's kind of a beautiful formula for people who are working professionals and people who are raising kids and who just can't go off for 2 years and do a degree. We're also a Changemaker campus. We were designated a Changemaker campus in 2017. And this means that, the kind of education that we're provided is very applied. It's real world. We encourage people to work on, issues and concerns and, action that will make a real difference in the world. So it's research that makes a real difference. Not just putting something on a shelf and getting a degree, but something that actually is the way we can live our learning. So it's recognized worldwide that Ashoka U is a Changemaker campus. And that's Royal Roads. So here with us today, drum roll, please. I have Solera, who, and forgive me, you guys, I just sort of did these little snippets of your research. So if you want to correct any part of it, you just feel free. But I was thinking, Solera, that your work is centering around learning from the land. And because you're our food systems manager on the farm, as well as one of our students, and you're writing some stories and teaching stories from the farm, that maybe we could talk a bit about that today. And Renee is here, who works in local government in Saanich, and she's working on engagement on biodiversity and climate change, which is a broad brushstroke there, Renee, and you could give us more on that. And Andrew is a K-12 teacher, and he's reimagining climate resilient schools with all of the players, all of the people that are the actors that are part of the school system, to imagine what a resilient climate ready school might look like using something called makerspace. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and maybe I'll just ask Andrew to unmute if that's possible. Yay. So, someone has to go first.
Sure.
So hi, Andrew. Thanks.
Hi,
Thank you for being here.
my pleasure.
Yeah, great. I know you're busy. You just said you finished marking report cards, and yep, I mean, never a
Yeah,
dull moment. And
no,
okay. Well, listen, the question that I wanted to ask you was, I was thinking this morning, and we were just talking about this, that when we first met, when you were first here last year, was it last year?
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Gosh, how time does fly. We were having a conversation about what you wanted to research. And I know that you were keen to involve your school and to look at new ways that the school could imagine itself or reimagine itself. And I wondered, from that point to this point, what might have changed for you, or did anything change for you? And tell us a little bit about that and where you've come so far, if you will, and what might have surprised you about some of that.
Um, I had a desire to change the entire school district because that's how my brain likes to work.
Yay.
And I think through the process of this program, it's gone from changing the entire school district to doing change at my school, and then using that as an opportunity for recommendations and case studies so that the school district can learn from that. My school district, I think, like other large organizations, sometimes works at a glacial pace. Um, and there's lots of different sort of stakeholders in terms of unions. Our school district has three different unions that are all connected. Plus you have students, plus you have parents. And oftentimes those decisions are made at a sort of high level without having conversations with other people that are involved. And
Right.
so this project was really about having all of those different voices at the table, or as many voices as possible, to sort of work with that. And it has sort of grown. It grew out of one of the classes that I took because I was realizing that in order to make change within my school is in a larger system and a whole system, and that's in another system, and so you need different people from different connections to sort of bring that together. I think in the end, it will not be as large as I was hoping initially, but I think it's going to be the groundwork for a really beautiful thing that will come together and sort of um, it'll set the stage to hopefully make that change over the course of it.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm reminded of nested systems when you're saying,
yes.
all these different. So when we're talking about general systems thinking, these nested systems, how everything is interdependent. Can you say a little bit about the process that you're going to use and, where it comes from and what it
Uh,
might look like? How are you going to engage everybody? Like, tell us about your research, Andrew.
sure. Um,
Hmm.
so I will have 20 participants in my research, a series of students that are not directly under that I don't directly teach right now. So former students. I will have school staff, district staff, some parents. I might have a Saanich municipality employee join us as well. Um, and they're all going to be doing a 1 day workshop together. And so they will all be together. We're going to do a bit of a presentation. They will have empathetic interviews with each other. We'll do a school tour. When you look at my school site from a Google map, it looks like this barren, desolate, dry land. Um, and I think there's 9 trees in the whole back area to provide shade for people.
Hmm.
And then participants will be working in mixed teams of sort of students and staff together, and they will be reimagining what that school could look like as a metaphor or a prototype. It's a process called a makerspace, and so they have a set number of materials and resources. They have time pressure, and they have to sort of bring this whole system together to come up with it. The end is not going to be a polished design, but a bunch of beautiful metaphors of what our school could be, and then the recommendations that will go along with it to the school district.
Well, I love that you're using art and this whole idea of constraint, limitation of
Mhm.
resources and time, because that's actually how the real world works. We can
Mhm.
blue sky anything, but to have those kinds of restrictions sometimes allows the greatest creativity. And
Mhm.
yeah, I've seen the picture of your school, and there could be a lot of improvement for climate resilience. I mean, we had those heat domes, and you
Yeah,
showed me some of the pictures of the thermometers breaking in the
yeah,
school,
yeah,
and there was just no shade and no relief.
yeah.
And
We were averaging 28 to 33 degrees in classroom temperatures
mhm,
during the heat dome.
yeah,
And yeah, there was no place for shade. Our district they were using sprinklers to keep the kids cool at lunchtime. And then when the atmospheric river came through,
yeah,
our field doesn't get used for a significant portion of the year because it's too wet.
yeah.
And so I want to see the balance of bringing those things together and designing it with the earth in mind so that we can actually be climate resilient.
I love that. Yay! I cast my votes for that. But I also love that you're starting small. And it's small isn't insignificant. Small is the personal. Like this is part of what we're
Mhm.
talking about today, how this is a personal desire of yours, but it has significance
Mhm.
that goes beyond you. And perhaps maybe you'll be presenting this to other school districts or to,
Hopefully.
uh-huh, yeah,
Yeah.
and to your board and, everybody else who they can see what's possible. I also love that the students will be involved and their voice will be at the table, and that's not
Yeah.
always the case. So,
No, I think a lot of education decisions are made with the student's best interest in mind, but not having them involved in the process in any way, shape, or form. So,
right. So it's a
yeah,
bit messy, but that's kind of how things go when you're
yeah,
gathering everything. Yeah, lovely. Well, thanks, Andrew.
no worries.
Just good luck with all of that. I'm just very excited for you. I am accompanying you for part of it,
Me
so
too.
it's not like good luck and take care and see you later. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you.
Lara, I'm going to move over to you now, if I may. And I just wanted to ask if how this program might have affected you, personally, like work, life, relationships, sense of identity. What's been happening for you? Just a small question, but maybe tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then what's been happening for you.
Yeah, so I feel that my journey might be a little bit different because it is so tied to the campus grounds and my work, where I'm, on one hand helping to create the farm, which is a new kind of project on campus where we're putting in food gardens and integrating it with education and the community at large, and to also production. And then also my, educational journey alongside, and they are incredibly intertwined. And I feel like, Andrew speaking, I'm reflecting that it's the same for him, with his job, and Renee as well. Your job, your career, and your education, they're in this program, they become, you know, self generative. They feed each other. And so yeah, I feel that I have learned so much in both the classroom setting and through the residencies and from my cohort, um,
Yeah.
that has helped me in a lot of ways, and just to feel more confident and supported in the real world work that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's just how, and when you're talking about that, I think to myself, well, how could it be any other way? But of course, it can be. Learning can be divorced from, what we're doing in our lives often. And I think this does surprise people, though, that they can actually do research that is something that's happening for them in their lives, um, and that actually is legitimate.
Yeah.
Because there's also the thing about that where you say, well, is it really legitimate to write stories from the farm and be able to hand them out to the public? And yes, yes, it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, definitely. I feel, yeah,
yeah,
from my research perspective, it's, a little bit more arts based, creating stories, but from the research I'm doing, the stories are what is leading to transformation for folks. The stories are what stick with people. And so that's like that communication element of the program. It's so key to, it's not always the most accessible to just have the surveys and the research, and not that that's, not important, but then to be able to kind of transcend boundaries for folks and be able to just have like real world connection to the landscape.
yeah, I love that. And I'm just thinking back too about how far you've come when you also did a beautiful directed study. It wasn't just, you're not just sort of imagining some stories out of somewhere. You've done a really deep look at mythology and folklore and the power of storytelling. And, you followed some of those threads along. So it's not like you're skimming along here. There's been some real depth learning in terms of your research, I think, that's kind of worth speaking about, because people say, oh, it'd be pretty easy to do to complete your degree by writing a story. And I think there's a bit more to that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I do. I agree. I think, like, I'm laughing because I feel that I'm still at that beginning part of my MRP. So, I think that that's something that's really great about this program, is that it allows you space if you need it. Like, learning doesn't just come like so quickly for me. I really need time to integrate what I'm learning and to like see how you know, how it relates to myself and my community. And so that's something that I really appreciate about this program is, you know, if you have to take some time to step back, you can, and integrate and then move forward. Like, I feel like my learning has just been so much more deep and transformative.
Yeah, well, thanks for reminding me about that too. It is kind of it's a little odd, but it's a little customized, isn't it? I mean, you know, that's not always possible in programs that have, you know, 55 people. Oh, I think we've got Nye Stevens. I think your iPhone is on. If you wouldn't mind muting, thanks. That can happen. But yeah, I'm just thinking about this idea of we move at our own pace. You know, I mean, Andrew, you'll understand this too. There's that beautiful work by Ken Robinson where he says, you know, even in K to 12, you can't put kids through in batches. Like all 5-year-olds don't learn to get in the same way and at the same pace. But I'd say all of us, you know, not just the 5-year-olds, but all of us learn at our own different paces and in our own way of taking the time. And I think time is critical because everything seems very, very rushed at first when we do all our coursework, and then having some spaciousness to really integrate what's going on for you and to know what you're going to take forward and what you're going to leave back. Like that's the real work of the researcher, making some of those critical decisions and stepping into your own, well, really your own authority. And I mean authority in the sense of, you know, the same root as authorship and authenticity, you know, in your own words, in your own understanding, especially in a qualitative methodology when you're, you know, it's quite subjective and it's based upon that. That is where the validity is based actually on your own subjective lived experience. Plus, there's always a beautiful harvest, and you know, Solera walks into class with food and woven things, and you know, so your work in the farm has come into your assignments for sure. Yeah, it's always been really welcome. So, anyways, yeah, thanks, Solera. That's beautiful. Yeah. And Renee, last but certainly not least, it's so good to see you today.
You as
I have
well.
a feeling you're going to be in Andrew's makerspace from just that introduction. But you know, I'm just thinking about, well, I hear great things about your project, by the way, from your supervisor. We're friends. So I hear all these good things that you're just really moving right along, very organized and very engaged. And at Royal Roads, our motto is living your learning. I really think it's a good motto. You know, some of those things you just think, oh, you'd forget them. But I really do remember that because I feel like that's what we're doing so much of the time. And you've heard this from your colleagues as well, how they're applying some of what they're learning to their work. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about your project and how that is starting to shape around your work and around your life. And what is it that you're doing and looking at, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I am a District of Saanich employee, and my job title is Environmental Education Coordinator. And rather than taking a top-down approach of me deciding what my community should learn about, I've decided to flip that and actually ask the people what they think would contribute to their learning. And so in this case, I'm looking at a certain group, which is the volunteers that work in our parks, and exploring their views of what they think would help them take some environmental learning that they get within the park setting and take it back home to their own yards and neighborhoods so that they can act as agents of change in their communities in helping build resilient communities in the face of climate change.
I just saw all the widening circles, you know, like they're dropping into their communities, right? Just like those
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
visions of widening circles.
yeah.
And this was something you also had in mind. I mean, I remember talking to you right at the very beginning, and I thought, wow, she already really has an idea of what she'd like to do. Has that changed for you at all, or?
Well, I knew that I wanted to have something very action oriented and practical. Um, I'm a really pragmatic person, and so that appeals to me. Um, I really had a view that I wanted it to be local and within my own community. So I always had that kind of local action and climate action. Um, but I was not actually working in this field when I started my program. And so part of my goal was to land a job that would actually let me do so. So I had kind of my grand vision of where I was going to go. And I'm happy to say it did come together and some nice synergy, um, so that I'm now in place to be able to do that research. It did narrow down to, like Andrew, scope, rather than going out and interviewing the whole community, I'm focusing it on a very small group of people. But yeah, it's been a fairly straight path for me, which I don't think is necessarily the case for everyone, but it did work out that way for me.
And also, this is a great experience. I mean, when we're talking about scope and scale, it's a great experience to get your research chops up, to really start
Yeah.
to know how to make great surveys. And we learned so much. I was just working with someone the other day who was at the end of her thesis, and she was like, "Oh, I should have asked this other question." I say, "Well, this is what we want. We don't want you to go back and now fix that question so it all looks perfect. We want something to have happened where you say, oh, if I just asked that, this might happen. So the next time you go to do it, you've had this experience. So starting small can be very mighty, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always really appreciate your pragmatism too, because, we do a lot of relational experiences and experiential work in this program. And it's very often, it brings in many different types of intelligences. And so often people can say, well, we're tired of the rational and we want to now be more in the sensual. I think we need it all. We need the both and. We need this beautiful kind of whole human approach to how we're looking at our work and our lives and how we'll be better citizens of this earth, as we move forward. If you had something you might offer to a Meek student coming in, like what advice might you give them, or what might you say to maybe even to your earlier self coming in?
Yeah.
But yeah, what might you say, Renee?
Well, I have two things. The
Mm.
first thing is, I think having a concrete um, vision or even just anchoring of why you're doing this. For me, it was career development, but I've seen for others it's been personal growth. But, having that really fixed thing that you can anchor yourself to when things get tough, to reflect back, no, this is part of why I'm doing this, I think can be really helpful because, it's not always easy. And so, yeah, having that anchor is really helpful.
Having a
And
why, a good
yeah,
why.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
you can
just,
handle anyhow.
yes. So not necessarily just doing it because you don't know what you're doing, although that's fine too, but, having that, yeah, that
Beautiful.
solid thing to look back on. And the second thing is apply for bursaries because I didn't know that that was something I could do with Royal Roads, but there are some available, and yeah, it's well worth taking the time to do. Even when you feel really busy and you're like, I don't know if I can write something, it is worthwhile to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And later in the call, I'll be showing people the link to some of that financial aid, but so much of it
Yeah,
goes untaken because people just don't apply. So that's excellent
yeah.
advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, there it is. I think Vance just put it in the chat. So we've got, timing is everything. So I'm going to go backwards again and go back to you, Solara, and say, what advice might you give someone who's coming into Meek at this time? What might you say to someone if they were saying, hey, I'm thinking about this program. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say I really echo what Renee says, having kind of an idea of where you want this to take you, um, because it is really, deep work that we go through. And so, yeah. And yeah, to know that it's not going to be easy and you're going to be stretched in ways that are going to surprise you to do it, but that it is super transformational in terms of not just like the learning part of it, but in all of these other ways that you might not necessarily be aware of at first.
Yeah, that's the personal significance too. And also I'd say you know, the support, because
Yeah.
in the peer-to-peer learning, like in a cohort where you know each other and you guys travel through together, that's really something. That's a
Well,
kind
and
of
the team as well. I would say, Katrin has been an amazing person along the way, to touch base with if we need it. And you, Hilary, are such a guiding force. And yeah, just to know that the program, I think I mentioned this before, the program is flexible and super supportive for your journey. And so, yeah, it's really interesting to see the differences within the cohort, but that everyone is equally supported. So I would say that.
so good. Gosh, I just was thinking about you guys coming back from field school last year. You were a little soggy, but it was great to receive you. I'm the last course that people come and take before they start their research. And so I always get this beautiful privilege of seeing how tenderized people are by the time they're ready to go off and do their work. So Andrew, we'll just, end our kind of conversation with you guys with just maybe an advice or something you'd like to offer, or anything else that's coming up for you right now that you've learned, or
I would say that I took this program because of a deep connection to the environment and the worry around it. I would say equally important for me was to prove to myself that I was smart enough to do a master's program. And there was a lot of inner critics that were sort of present and doubtful first days of sort of wondering if it was going to happen. And I just think of those inner critics slowly being silenced as sort of we've gone through the program, and as Solara said, the incredible cohort that you sort of get to connect with, and the professors that sort of silence those voices, and then slowly that inner critic starts to sort of step aside, and you get to hear your other voice and the other narratives. And then I find myself, like this morning, I'm now working on the research consent for my project, and so it has come all of that way, and knowing that I'm capable to do it, and I was smart enough to do it, and that it was a great program to sort of push that through, while also connecting to a lot of other deeper sort of understandings of how the earth is connected and how we are connected, and all those different factors that play into it.
Well, just hearing you guys talk about your research, I also wish you joy in your research, because it is also joyful once you get sort of the proposal done and the framework and the ethics. Like, I really hope your Maker Day is really, very juicy and spectacular and filled with surprises. And Renee, I really hope that you get some beautiful information and, get to see what starts to happen for people as they, that might be outside the scope of your research, but I think you'll be able to know what's sort of going on, what's transforming for people. And Solara, I know that every day you get to see this happening in the garden, and it's in small ways sometimes, very nuanced, but it makes a world of difference. Yay! Okay, well, three of my favorite people in the universe. I'll just thank you all for coming, and I'm going to spend the last little bit of our time together with the students on the call and going through the program. And you can feel free to stay if you'd like, but if you also have to hive off for work or for marking or for farming, I understand it. So I just want to thank the three of you very, very much. There'll be cookies in the mail or something. There'll be something to you. I'll send you some food. There'll be some food coming your way. And I'll see you soon, Andrew and Solara and Renee. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go
Thank
back to
you.
sharing the screen. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. So here we go. And can you see the screen now? Is that a good, Vance? Or Katrin, is it up? Yep.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, well, thanks everybody so far who's been on the call. I'm just going to go through the program structure now, just to talk a little bit about this program, because you've heard us allude to a few things and I just want to kind of unpack it. but feel free to ask any questions. And maybe Vance, if you could monitor the chat and just let me know if there are questions. I won't be doing both those things at once.
Sure.
So when we talk about our delivery model and we say we're a mostly online university, our program is what's called a blended program. So we start with on-campus residencies in the first summer with 2 programs, and then we go online for a year, and then we come back and do 2 more on-campus courses at the end, and then people go off and do their research. So it's a 2-year and about 5-month program, and it's called blended. So there's many paths to this program. It's been designed in a really interesting way. The first 3 courses in the program, the 2 residency courses and the first online course, comprise a graduate certificate in environmental education and communication. And some people just start with those 3 courses and say that's enough, and off they go. But most people who start with the 3 kind of get bitten by the bug, and they want to carry on and do the full MA, or at least the diploma. The diploma is all of the coursework and not the research completion. And for the full MA, the Master of Arts in Environmental Education and Communication, you need to do all of the coursework and the final fulfillment of the research completion. So I'll just show you how this looks. So these are all of the courses that are in this program. We start with 500, Deepening Ecological Awareness and Understanding, and that's our first residency course, which we share on campus with Learning Theory and Program Design. 2 beautiful courses for 3 weeks at this amazing campus on Vancouver Island. Then we go to our first online course, which is Foundations for Environmental Communication. And that's a really important course. That kind of, the 3 of these courses solidifies kind of the essence of this whole program. It's like a microcosm. That's why it's the graduate certificate. And then we go off into the next online course, which is a systems perspective, a very deep dive into understanding the interdependencies and interrelatedness of all life. It's a fantastic course that goes way back into the historicity of, human beings and moves us right up until today, filled with experiential learning. And one of our former alum who has his PhD now teaches this course. So it's one of our own people teaching it. We just love it. Then off to approaches to research in environmental education and communication. It's a beautiful course where we use a process called clean language. And it comes from the Clean Language Institute. And it's a psychological process of really getting into finding what deeper meaning there might be under your research. Like, why do you really want to research this? The real meaning behind getting very clean on your questions and finding out what it is you want to know and why. So it's a very, very helpful course. And you learn how to write a research proposal as part of your final assignment there. So even if you don't quite use that proposal when it comes time for your research, you've already got the pattern down. It's very, very helpful course. Then we go to Worldviews and Ethics, taught by Dr. Bob Cull, and it's a beautiful, wide-ranging, deep dive into the literature of many different worldviews and what it means, what environmental ethics means. And this kind of sense of getting it's like a beautiful, huge scan of, what's there, including videos, and you meet, it's synchronistic, but you do meet often. And there's even a meditation component, which is really beautiful. And people say that's sometimes one of their favorite courses. 586 is the Biosphere and Sustainability, and it's delivered partly online, but also in the field. And right now, we're taking our students up to the Broughton Archipelago with Dr. Ashley Aiken. And we work within a local First Nations community. We live and learn there. We take day trips, and we deepen our experience of what it means to, live and work in this kind of, even almost beyond sustainable approach. So people come back from field school and they take the last course, 509 Ecopsychology, at the intersection of theory and practice. And that's the course that I teach. And so we spend the last 2 weeks, we do an awful lot of reading and preparation for this, but then we also kind of throw out the text and we read the world. We really have a deep immersion into nature, and we use a number of modalities for expressing what's happened. There's a written component, obviously, essay writing and a synthesis writing is really important. We do arts-based representations and research. We do critical reflections. Part of place bonding and sitting in nature is part of our activity. So it's not something you just sort of do on the side at your lunch. It's really built into the curriculum. And people say this is a really good kind of anchor for them to start their research. And then you have two ways to complete. You can complete with a thesis, a more traditional kind of deep dive that's usually looking at an issue or a concern. Or you can do what's called an MRP. You heard Solaris say MRP, Major Research Project, which is 9 credits when the thesis is a 12 credit completion. And so you do 9 credits for the MRP, which is shorter in scope and more applied. What Andrew's doing, what Renee's doing, and what Solera are doing are all MRPs. And they also had to take an elective course for 3 more credits. Sometimes that's an existing course, or in Solera's case, it was a directed study where we went and looked deeply into myth and story and folklore and the power of that, so that she was prepared for her major research project to really springboard off to that and, not spend extra time trying to figure out where to go with that final project. So yeah, that's a great picture of our class going out to Woody's Lagoon during the residency one very early morning. So yes, we spend a lot of time outside. It's very beautiful. And this is just a recap of the format. It's a blend of distance and face-to-face. There's 3 months and 3 courses, or 9 credits for the certificate, the first 3 courses. The 1 year all coursework, 24 credits, is the diploma. And then the 2 years and a little bit is 36 credits, and that's the complete Master of Arts degree, which includes the thesis or the major research project and elective. And there's, for the grad cert, there's 1 residency, and for the diploma and for the MA, there's the 2 residencies, the one in the first year and the one in the second. And there are some students expressing their joy at having been to field school. So that's a beautiful picture too. Yeah. Lots of fun and joy in this program. While we're very concerned about what's going on in the world, and of course, there's not anyone in this cohort that hasn't done the math, that hasn't been bombarded with the climate emergency. And we're also interested in cultivating our sense of beauty and wonder and joy, and how we might learn to be together and belong together in a really significant way. So right, we have standard admission, which is, we're looking for people who have a 4-year undergrad degree in a related field, or, even in a field that isn't related, as long as you can speak to what your bridge is, why you're switching gears now in your personal statement that you write to us. And at least 2 years relevant work or volunteer experience, or a combination of both. And if folks that meet the degree requirement but not the GPA requirement, and for many people who haven't been to school in a long time, we really recommend the academic writing and critical thinking course. It comes out of our professional and continuing studies. It's online, and we're looking for a final grade of B, or a 73, for people to pass that condition if it's the thing that's holding you back. Plus, just great to get your writing chops up. You don't want to be wrestling with your writing. You want to be wrestling with the content once you're in the program. So I highly recommend that for everybody coming into the program. But we also have flexible admission, which is pretty amazing. So if someone doesn't meet the standard admissions requirements, we are looking for about 6 years relevant work experience, or a combination of volunteer education and work experience. And it's also a combination of post-secondary and professional qualifications, like if you started some degrees, or you have some certificates, or you've been doing professional development, we want to know about that. And it's really critical that when you're writing your statement, your purpose statement of, why you and why now, that you really tie some of this together for us so we know why you're coming now and why this is really important. And maybe your earlier schooling wasn't the right time for you, or you didn't do well at it, but people move on and they also grow up and they make meaning out of their lives. So we're very curious about why you and why now. Again, generally, most people would take the academic writing and critical thinking, just because we really want to see that you were not struggling with any of the writing as you came in, because there is plenty of essay writing, not only, but it's also part of the program. What kind of joke and say, in other universities, Mother Teresa wouldn't get in. She didn't have an undergrad degree, but at Royal Road, she would get in because we would look at her background and we would say, tell us about yourself and what is it that you're doing in the world? Because that's really important too. We want to recognize who you are. So your application, there's an online application fee that applies once you sort of push that button. Then we're looking for official transcripts that have to be sent to our admissions people directly. They can't come through you. They have to come from the institutes that you're you're obtaining your transcripts from. We would like a really detailed resume, and I mean really put on there any of your volunteer work, any of your interests, any of the things that you've been doing over the years, because it starts to put together this more comprehensive picture of who you are and why you're looking at this degree right now. And again, as I've mentioned, your personal statement is critical. So write to us and tell us, what's going on for you, and make the case for wanting to come to the program. This is just really an important piece, and it's not just a kind of like, let's get it done and put it in the application. Some thought and some significant time put into the personal statement will really come back to you as a boon. And then 2 letters of reference, and one can be from a former academic institute, and one can be from a professional relationship. We really don't want letters from your friends. We really want letters from people who you've either worked with or worked for or learned with before, or even volunteered with. That would be wonderful. And those letters really do matter too. We have a look at everything. We've got some key dates, some next intake dates. I know this deadline will be pushed because it is every year, so don't let this deadline hold you back. If April 8th seems too soon, we'll extend that deadline, but the next intake is July 8th. So if you're keen on coming this year, just get your application process going. You don't have to have everything all together to send it in. Just start the process, and then we know you're in the system, and then you'll get support to bring those documents along. And there's lots of good support in admissions. These are wonderful people who know our program very well and will help guide your way. But don't let this date hold you back. Apply if you want to apply for this year. Just do that now. Get your foot kind of in the door, and then we can work on getting your bits and pieces together. And then also there's an intake every July. So there's also an intake July 7, 2025 as well. Yeah, and here are the services available. You heard Renee speak about financial awards. She was really surprised that she could qualify and get a financial award, and it really made all the difference for her. And so there's loans and bursaries and scholarships and other awards. There's student research scholarships. There's emergency funding. And I think Vance has already put that in the, Vance, you've already put that in the chat, haven't you? Or did Katrin do that?
Yeah, several times.
Okay, great. And then, of course, with enrollment services, if you want to speak to somebody, there's the learn.more at Royal Roads. Here's the phone number and the toll-free number. But also, I would say, email me if you'd like to have a conversation. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. We do this all the time because sometimes it's good just to talk these things through. And my email is hilary.leighton@royalroads.ca. I'm the program head. And you can find me in the directory if, you know, you can find me actually on the bio page under faculty for this program. And maybe Vance is putting it in the chat. Are you? Yeah, great. Yeah, and sometimes this might not even be the right program for you, but this conversation can help discern. And I'm always eager to just hear where you're at and what's going on and see how I might be able to help. I've worked in a number of different areas in the university, and I do know most of the other programs too, so we can always have a good chat. Right, so we always end with Mary Oliver. Tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. This is one of our students. She's just finishing now, and she's done an amazing project on, you know, biodiversity and beauty. And she was a natural scientist who crossed over, and now she's working within natural and social science. So she's really quite spectacular. I do like to highlight what our students are doing because that's what's making a world of difference. Are there any questions in the chat that anybody wants to put forward? We have a few more moments. I'll go up there myself. Maybe I'll stop sharing and I'll just see who's in the chat here. Okay.
No questions yet, Hilary. Oh, here's one from Seth. How many people are generally in each cohort?
Yeah, it depends. We're not a huge program, Seth. So pre-COVID, we were into the 24 kind of numbers. We got down to about 15 or 16 during COVID. So sometimes it's nice and small. We're always last minute in our program to get our enrollments up, but we're looking forward to about that same number again this year. So everybody knows each other, and you get really great hands-on attention from your profs and peer-to-peer. You know, it's small learning groups are, of course, most effective in adult learning. We love that. We don't want to be 50 people in a cohort. You want your profs to also know you, to know what it is that you're keen on studying, and what it is, what kind of a worldview and a lens that you bring in, or as I say, what bright threads of your life you're bringing into this program that we can start to, you know, pull upon and sort of weave into the curriculum that you're learning and the final research project that you do. Yeah, so we're small but mighty. The meek shall prevail. The meek will inherit the earth is one of our sayings. Yeah. Anybody?
Yep. Hi, my name it's been a very interesting venture to can you all hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Good. Okay, my name is Yilma again, and I happen to be the only African here from so I was expecting more people maybe to check in from Africa, but it's interesting. I find this to be a very interesting, and I count it as a privilege actually, because I have maybe like plus 40 years of work in wildlife conservation here in Ethiopia, in Africa.
Yeah.
And but ever since, I mean, I started work really in national parks here in Ethiopia way back in 79, 80.
Yeah.
And but all through that time, it's not really about the science, not about really species conservation or protected area management, but it's been all about communication.
Yeah.
And that's one thing which, I mean, distilling all these years of experience in my life, one thing I understand is that we have not been able to communicate the conservation gospel in a way, and that's, I see that there is a growing gap.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been a very good communicator myself, very shy boy when I started out, but I feel I have trained myself in a way to be able to communicate with politicians, farmers, students, anyone. Yeah. But reaching this stage, I feel that sort of my major work from now on should be really on communicating conservation or environmental conservation. And I've been working with kids, youth, farmers here in Ethiopia in different kinds of ways. And I have been in contact with your school since 2020. And I've been receiving your newsletter. So I've been very interested. I've looked for a number of schools all over the globe. And I find that Royal Roads is doing a fine job, I think. And I really like, I've been following up a lot of things, and your ability to really sort of do ground level work. I mean, even like the environment that you're living in and trying to do work in is so beautiful, even on screen. And
Yeah.
and the way you presented it, Hilary, is so beautiful. And your students and everyone working with you is doing a really amazing, stellar job of getting. I really can't express it, because this is what I've been looking for,
Well, thank
trying
you,
to
Gilmer.
marry, yeah,
Thank you so much.
trying to marry environmental education with communication. There are a
Well,
lot of
yeah.
environmental educators, but they're not communicators.
Well, you know,
Of
it's interesting you
There are
should see that.
communicators, but they're not environmental educators.
That's
But
right.
this, yeah. So
Well, because we're not just EE, you know, because there's a lot of EE, the environmental education, and it's not just and communication, it's that all these things have to go together. Like you've said it, I think you're very articulate. You've said it very well that, you
yeah,
know,
thank you.
we haven't done a good job of communicating the science. We haven't done a good job of communicating with each other, to actually deeply listen to one another and to find a common language, which is earth language. You know, it's I was reading something today from Beo Akomolafe, who's a most amazing author and writer and father. And he said, you know, it's the language of the trees that we have to come together on, you know, so that
Yes.
we're all speaking the same language. And it's not, you know, it's not lightweight. This is like, you know, ancient kind of wisdom. It's like a new old episteme. And, you know, if you did come, I think you would love our communications prof.
Yeah.
He's a comedian. He's an arts-based environmental educator, and he makes films on, he made a film on the oil sands in Alberta and called it Tar Wars. So based on the Star Wars trilogy. I mean, there are ways to communicate. You say you're working with kids. There are ways we can bring art and film and to inspire people to, you know, take action because they know it in their bones. It's not something they memorized.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, you know, basically, when I started out as a young person, I was an artist, and I'm still an artist.
Beautiful.
But I had to go into biology, science, because I failed a fine arts examination and couldn't join art school here in Addis Ababa. But basically, I was born to be an artist. But since I love biology, since I love birds and plants and flowers and streams and mountains, I said, if I'm not going to be an artist, I'm going to be a biologist. But each time I've been pulled back to my arts foundation. And what I really like to do, if I ever come to Royal Roads, is to work on my art background and join that with the science thing. And I have a lot of ideas which I would like to put on the ground.
Good.
And you know, I've been doing nature journaling with children. I've been reading Leslie Claire, and I mean, you know Claire, for Claire Walker, Leslie and Charles Roth, keeping a nature journal. I got their book maybe, I don't know, some 15 years ago or nearly 12 years ago, and I've been using that as a foundation to. I believe in outdoor classrooms.
So do we.
Uh,
You know, I
yeah.
know that we have to go because our time is almost
Yes.
up, but I want to offer two things. The word scientist comes from science and artist. I mean,
Yes.
originally it was because the artists, you know, crossed over to science because they were starting to draw the flowers and draw the trees. So that word itself, scientist, social scientist, includes
Yes.
artist. So
Wow.
you're
Okay.
in the right place.
Yes.
If you send
Okay.
me an email, I'll send you something to read that will be
Okay.
probably will
Good.
illuminate your heart, you know,
Great.
just for
Great.
now.
Okay.
And I would
Okay.
encourage you to apply because it just sounds
Yes.
perfect. And remember, there's
Yeah.
bursaries and help if finances or something. And I know you'd come a long way, but you'd be welcome.
Yes.
More than welcome.
I'm at the other. I'm on the other side of the world now. It's right like midnight now.
Oh, thank you for
But
staying up.
but it's been very. I mean, I've gained a lot from all the discussions and your introductions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And with that, everyone, I'm just going to say what a beautiful conversation. And I can't thank you enough, Vance and Katrin and Mariana, for coming, and everybody else in the room. And I know people will open up this link and click on it later. So again, I'll just offer that please get in touch if
Okay.
you'd like to
Thank
talk.
you very much.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
And
Bye.
thanks, Vance, for recording.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thanks, Yelima.